This is Mainstream Metaphysics with your host, Nick Newmont.
Hey there, welcome to Mainstream Metaphysics. I am Nick Newmont, coming to you live from the studios of Conejo Valley Talk Radio in the heart of Westlake Village. And we are on the Newmont Consciousness Network. Oh my God, what a mouthful. Welcome to the show. This is our pre-4th of July show, and a lot to talk about because the country has a birthday. And if you could see from the overhead, I have got charts all over the place. Of course, that's what the captain of the minnow said on Gilligan's Island, and you know what happened to them. So back there laughing, you can hear the gravelly voice of Ed Hunt himself, producing and directing the show. Hello, Ed. Yes, I am flying solo tonight.
Yes, Captain.
But the skipper. Next week, my guest is astrologer Lisa Allen, and she will be back, and she's going to be talking a lot about the fact that the planet Uranus is now in Gemini, and there's a lot of Gemini and Mercury references that I'm going to get into tonight, and I will be able to make sense of it for you. Hopefully I can make sense of it for me. And I've been doing this for 30-some years. If you're in the LA area, you know it's hot. It is hot. This is only July 1st. It's been hot for a couple weeks, and it's not even August yet. So keep cool, folks. And I mean that with all the planetary movement, not just as a reference to the weather, but a mental metaphor too. Everybody's got to keep themselves in check right now, because some of these astrological references that I'm going to get into tonight, and some of it you've heard before, I'm trying to hammer home the reality of this stuff and what it's doing and what it can do for us, and the way these things challenge us, you know, in the time ahead. We are already having planets in retrograde. In fact, I might as well get into some of the planetary movement for the month of July. And by the way, the book that I have in front of me, people ask me, how do I know where the planets are and all of that? And this is an ephemeris. And every astrologer has one of these, and it shows you where the planets are on a given day, in a given month, in a given year. And I've had people look at this and go, oh my God, how can you read that? Well, you just have to understand, you know, time and dates and the glyphs for the planets, and it's really not that hard. So if you asked me without the rising sign, and by the way, this one goes from 2000 to 2100, and they change them. Some of them are thicker. I have one that goes from 1900 up to 1999, because I have to research people at times that are born, you know, in the 20th century. But think of it as a astrological farmer's almanac. All right, references moon cycles, full moon. Where'd I go? There we go. All right.
Coming back. Hold on. It's the camera. Sorry.
That's all right. I can talk over that. So that's how I know. Now, what do we know about planetary movement in the month of July? Well, first of all, on the 4th of July at 2:33 p.m. here on the West Coast, Neptune goes retrograde, and we are going to talk about Neptune tonight. On July the 7th, at 12:47 a.m., Uranus goes into Gemini, and that is the bulk of the topic next week with Lisa Allen and myself. And then on the 10th, which is next week, we've got a full moon in Capricorn at 1:37 p.m. July 13th, and this is part of what I'm going to talk about tonight, at 9:07 p.m. on the West Coast. Saturn goes retrograde. July 18th at 9:45 PM, we get a Mercury retrograde on the West Coast. And then at the end of July, July 24th, we get a new moon in Leo. So I make notes of the planetary movement based on what I see, in the ephemeris. Now, the ephemeris doesn't give precise time; it gives the day. When you have a very sophisticated astrology program like I do, and all astrologers do, you're able to run charts, and you plug in date, time, and that gives you exact planetary placement at that moment. When I ran these charts today that I want to talk about, I ran them around 2:29 p.m. It's that specific with the transits. So, when it comes to Mercury retrograde, and by the way, because it happens at July 18th, we are already 4 days into the pre-Mercury retrograde shadow period, and people ask, well, what is the shadow period? Well, there's 3 weeks of Mercury being retrograde, as it's stationed. It is retrograde. There's 3 weeks where the planet is slowing down in relationship to the other planets astrologically. So that's the pre-shadow. And then after Mercury goes direct, which will be in August, then there is the post-shadow period. And people that are purists on this, that preach about what to do and what not to do in Mercury retrograde, are caution a lot about even if it's not stationed, it's pre or post shadow, to still exercise caution on certain things. Now, for those of us that are born with Mercury retrograde, we don't we don't throw caution to the wind, but we still do things that we tell other people not to do. And quite frankly, I've gotten away with some things in Mercury retrograde, buying cars and things of that nature, which because in Mercury retrograde, and you're born with Mercury retrograde, it actually works in your favor. Which, does that mean the other, let me see, 21, jeez, does the other 31 weeks of the year, am I in trouble? No, I'm not. I didn't say the math right. You feel the extent of Mercury retrograde for about half the year, realistically, and that's why people are prone to ask when things aren't working out right, is Mercury retrograde right now? But we don't want to blame Mercury for everything. Now, as we get into charts, okay, the United States has a birthday on July 4th, and astrologers ask me, which chart do you use? I use the one that has the country as Sagittarius rising, using the time of birth, meaning the signing of the Declaration of Independence at 5:10 p.m. in Philadelphia. Now, numerologically, the country is going into a 20/2 year. Okay, what's that mean? Well, it means we're coming out of 19/1, where we are establishing new beginnings, a level of compassion to the country itself. But when we go into the 20/2 coming up, what's going to happen is that we are going to have somewhat of a realignment of partnerships. And this shows up in the astrology of the chart too. Not only the transits, but also the solar return chart of the country. So when we say we're in a 2-year, that's all about partnering. 20/2 means the all or none of partnerships, or the looking for the right partner. Now, the number 1, which we're finishing in the next couple days, is all about the male energy. The 2 is the female energy. So this means that there is a softness that comes into play with the country. The sun in the solar return chart is in the 6th house, which means that we take a compassionate approach to our, let's say, countries that are our teammates. The rising sign of the USA solar return chart is in Aquarius, which means that the concept of independence, which is what this country was founded on, is very present. So it's going to be a year of, with Mercury in the 7th house, a year of negotiating. And again, a solar return chart, doesn't supersede the transits, but it is a theme for the year ahead. Now, in the transits itself, the country, the planet Jupiter is sitting right on top of natal Jupiter. And over the next several days, it's going to go into a perfect alignment. So transiting Jupiter on top of the Jupiter, a Jupiter return happens every 12 years. So the country is returning to a form of abundance because Jupiter is growth, luck, money, expansion. This is a very good thing. And as Jupiter moves in the next couple weeks into the 8th house, which is the house of investments, the United States becomes a good investment, and money moves and flows. So we are, as we sit here right now, what we are looking at is the United States coming back into a good time financially. Not just the country flowing in terms of making money, but also in investing in things that are USA become very good, very strong. So again, whether it's in the chart of an entity like a country or a business or your own personal chart, when you have a Jupiter return, you're going into a new money cycle. Everything is refreshed. So this is really good news for everybody, all of us looking at this. The country will get a Uranus return in 2027, I believe, which means at that time, big changes coming all of a sudden. The Neptune-Saturn alignment that I've been speaking about for months now occurs in the 4th house, which is the house of home. So there's a lot, in this land, the United States, that's going to be brought to light as truth, and we will see what we need to see. And then down the road we get into next year, into 26, then the country gets a Saturn opposition. But there's a lot that's going to happen long before we get into that. And when we go back a couple years ago into 2023, we had the Pluto return in the chart of the United States. So, and Pluto will be in the house of money in the United States chart for about another 7 years. So there's these continual transformations of money when it comes to what's going on in the country. And we are feeling the effects of Mercury retrograde. So a lot to look forward to. A lot of changes coming. Now, there we are. See, I'm talking about Mercury retrograde and what happens. Stuff starts happening. All right, so with Mercury retrograde, and I am going to talk a lot about Gemini tonight. So what is Mercury retrograde? What does that mean? Well, it means that people change their minds, business can change directions, people may renege on contracts and things like that. transportation and communication may face challenges. Shipping companies, the post office, and also when it's Mercury retrograde, it is time to rethink and revisit. So as just little bullet points, what to do during Mercury retrograde. Well, change up your routine a little bit. Tend toward, routine maintenance. Replace what's old, but also give your mind a break. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, which are both very thinking signs. Now, what do you want to stay away from during Mercury retrograde? Making major decisions that could have a long-term impact, not paying attention to the warning signs along the way, getting into contracts that maybe not be to your benefit, or just taking on too much, like biting off more than you can chew. Now, I realize that sometimes appliances and technology breaks, and there are times that you do have to replace something that's mechanical or technological. One of the things that you want to make sure you do if you have to buy something in Mercury retrograde is get the warranty. Okay? That is really important when you're buying in Mercury retrograde, because that means that something may happen where you've got to take it back. All right? I don't know that I've ever talked about that before, about warranties and retrogrades. Now, where we sit at the moment, and this goes back into May, I told you, folks, I have all kinds of charts, all kinds of stuff going on here tonight. We do have Pluto retrograde into the middle of October, and Pluto is the planet of deep change. So what you want to look at during Pluto retrograde is explore your inner self, your deeper self. Look for healthy outlets for anger. If there's something that it's an unfinished project of some kind, when you get into like furniture, refinish it. Don't get into confrontations. It's a good idea in Pluto retrograde, just kind of let it slide, all right? And things to avoid in Mercury retrograde. Don't go into such a fight-flight mentality where rage takes over. Don't be self-righteous. Don't hold on to things too long, or do any things that are self-deprecating or self-destructive. Now, we also, as I said earlier on, we're looking at coming up on Neptune retrograde and Saturn retrograde, which are both going to align just minutes of arc away from each other as we get into July 13th. Now, with Neptune retrograde, you want to pay attention to your dreams, be more compassionate, work on creating good, healthy boundaries, and because Neptune is the planet of creativity, use your imagination in a productive way. Remember, Neptune is the planet of illusion and disillusion, so it's very fantasy-filled. Now, stay away from, in Neptune retrograde, getting caught up in unrealistic dreams. Don't let people walk all over you. Stay away from those characters we call psychic vampires. And don't get lost in fantasy, especially if it's something, because Neptune rules the 12th house, that it's something you could get into artificially that creates delusional behavior. Stay away from addictive things. We also are going into the Saturn retrograde. Now, Saturn retrograde, I actually kind of like Saturn retrograde because it gives us the ability to buy time. Saturn is the planet of karma, fate, destiny, lessons learned, obstacles. But that glyph that you see for the planet Saturn, and it would be very hard to see it if I showed you on a chart, it's the sickle of Kronos, the god of time. So Saturn retrograde is for making adjustments. So take time and review things in Saturn retrograde. Things don't have to be finalized in Saturn retrograde. Look and see what you can adjust during that period. But I always tell people, in Saturn retrograde, don't panic. It's okay. Governing bodies, big companies are actually more forgiving in Saturn retrograde. Now what we have is the Neptune-Saturn alignment that's coming up. As I said, we move into now. And so what we'll see on July the 13th, when both planets are retrograde, at that point they're very close to each other. They separate through the fall, and then both of them in the fall into the winter, they both go direct, and then they meet completely in February, around February the 20th. So the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is really important because it can create things, and I mean this even for now, what's going to happen from now all the way through February of next year. These are things that are going to come to the surface where, and I'm going to say something that I don't normally say. This can be very biblical, some of the shifts that we're going to see and the revelations that are going to take place, bringing things to light that have just been buried. And you're going to see a lot more of people digging deep on things, looking for truth, looking for answers. And sometimes those answers may not be to, someone's liking, but that's what's going to happen. As I said before, the last time this occurred, and we got into 1989, where the Berlin Wall came down. And by the way, when Neptune and Saturn align, it doesn't mean just at that moment are these things going to come out. It's a precursor for maybe a couple years of things being revealed. So it's extremely powerful because it happens every 37 years. The time before it happened was around 1952 when the Korean War ended and Stalin had died. Then you go back into 1917, the end of World War I. Then you go back before that, it was around 1882. Interesting that it happened also in 1763, where that was leading up to the formation of America and eventually to the American Revolution. So as one door closes, another one opens. Now, what's this going to bring? Okay. Letting go of illusions. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction can bring a time of disillusionment where we will have to face reality and let go of illusions and fantasies and whatever was untruth. Well, on the therapeutic side, when we say untruth, that has to do with fear. So a lot of fears were going to be allayed in this process. The time ahead will be challenging, but it will allow us to see things as they are and move forward realistically. This has to do with building new structures. So there's a tearing down of the old and building the new. This is a time to set new goals, create new habits, and establish new boundaries that align with your values and aspirations. So this is a moment for you to take a step back and go, wait a minute. Because Saturn is reality and Neptune is your dreams. So I would take time as we're moving forward on this to sit and think about what you really want. And maybe do a vision board, write affirmations, and whatever wasn't working to this point, is there the possibility that it couldn't work? Were you asking for the wrong things? Or were you not dreaming big enough, going into this? So really look at what it is you want to create. Neptune has to do with the depths of our soul. So you find your spiritual path in this time. This is a time to connect with your spiritual side and find a deeper meaning in your life. So meditate, seek out mentors that can help you get in touch with your spiritual self. Meditate, go to yoga, look at different kinds of practices that you're comfortable with. Also, reconnect with nature. Neptune is associated with the natural world. So connect with that, find the beauty in nature. It'll help you find peace and clarity. So while the Neptune-Saturn conjunction can be challenging, it also offers growth and transformation opportunities. So how do you prepare for this? Well, one, it's good to know your birth chart. Having a reading with an astrologer is very profound at this time. Practice some self-care. Take care of your physical, emotional, spiritual well-being. Rest, exercise. You may find that you've got this energy that you need to use and blow off some steam. Look at your values. This is a time to reflect on what I like to call intrinsic values. What's important? Assess your priorities and make adjustments so you can align with your beliefs. When I say your beliefs, have you been going along like you're on a treadmill and just doing this because you have to do whatever this is, but you have beliefs over here that are not connected to what you're doing? Take time, take a step back and look at, wait a minute, I've been on this occupational treadmill or whatever it is, and this isn't really where I want to be. Well, this is your opportunity to make those adjustments. This time can create a certain amount of confusion or uncertainty. This is a moment where people may find it challenging to find where they fit in the world. It's really important this time to focus on the reality side of Saturn, which is Capricorn, versus Neptune, which is Pisces. Be grounded, all right? And be careful about what you get into that would be some kind of artificial depressant or something that takes you on a bad trip. On a global side versus a personal side, this is going to bring about a lot of changes in politics, finance, economics, investments. This is turning things and churning things to create a lot of change. For a while, you may see more tension between groups of people, but it's a time of potential and challenge, and we must look at the reality of our reality, meaning Saturn, in connection with our spiritual self, which is Neptune. These events like this, when planets align every 30-some years, really do make an impact. And if you recall, going back 6 years ago, in 2019, many astrologers, we were talking about how 2020 was going to look, and it was going to be very challenging because of the Pluto-Saturn alignment, which is a very cold alignment. It doesn't care, and it was in the sign of Capricorn. And we all know what 2020 really did look like. It wasn't fun. This is not going to look like that, if you're wondering. It's going to bring things to light in such a way that we go, oh, okay, so that's what's really going on. And I'm very comfortable in saying that part of it is too that there are people that only look at this reality where it's touch it, taste it, feel it, smell it, that's all that exists, versus people that have been looking at alternative things and alternative realities, or things that have been sort of underground. Those things are going to bubble up, where everybody will see those things as realities. So is it a little bit of hold on for the ride? Yeah, it is. But not like you're going to Magic Mountain and ride roller coasters all day. It's not going to be like that. In fact, if anything, it will allow people to see things in such a way to sort of calm down and think about, oh, okay, now I can move forward because now we see what's really happening. Now, as I said that, next week, Lisa Allen is going to put a lot of focus on Uranus and Gemini. And with Mercury retrograde, Mercury rules Gemini, I want to talk about the effect and positions of Gemini in a chart, especially people that are born with 10th house Gemini. So President Trump is not born with Gemini on the midheaven, but his planets, Uranus, the north node of the moon, and the sun are all in Gemini. And it's very fascinating that people that are born with Gemini in the 10th house, whether it's on the midheaven or planets in there, have interesting reputations. When I look back to two names that come to mind are Marilyn Monroe, Kobe Bryant, I believe Madonna, Freddie Mercury have 10th house Geminis. I believe Jay-Z does. I mean, there's tons of people. Some of you out there may have 10th house Gemini. And because the 10th house is your public life, reputation, 10th house, it's success, or what can be high rise to fame and fortune. It's all public. And because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is how we think, it's how we do business, it's what we say, because it rules the third house of intellect and communication. To have Gemini high in the sky means that you could go into a public restroom during a conference and whisper to someone in the restroom something about someone else, and it goes up into the air ducts, and everybody in the conference hears that. In fact, something like that happened, and Ed back there is going to know what I'm talking about, in one of the Police Squad movies with Leslie Nielsen. He knows what I mean. It's an hysterical scene. It is exaggerated, but that is what happened. Now, when you have Gemini in the 10th house, a person's profession can be affected in a bad way. In any case, when Gemini is dynamic, he or she may choose a particular profession or achieve long-term goals due to a lack of concentration or a tendency to be indecisive. Individuals that have Gemini in the 10th house may experience difficulty maintaining a stable, open image or brand due to the influence of Gemini. So Gemini is illustrated with the Roman numeral 2. It refers to the twins. And Gemini people have a tendency to be very quick-minded, silver-tongued, talked out of both sides of their mouth. Geminis have a fickle side to them. And that's, wherever significant Gemini is in your chart. So when you have Gemini high in the sky, your public life is going to be under the microscope. And everything is up to, how do you say this? Perception, I think is the best way to put that. So everyone's going to have an opinion. So when you have Gemini high in the sky, you have to be careful with what you say. All right? Now, if you're looking for a career as some kind of public figure in journalism, politics, 10th house Gemini is a great placement for you. You just have to know that everybody's going to hear you, see you, and they're going to have something to say. Now, if we can go back to the chart from the overhead, I want to illustrate something here. And so this is the chart of Donald Trump, and the midheaven, which is the cusp of the 10th house, is ruled by Taurus, all right? And the cusp of the 11th house is ruled by Cancer. And what you see, and this is rare, that in the middle of the 10th house is the glyph for Gemini. So Gemini is not ruling the 10th or the 11th house, which means that it skips. On the other side of the chart, Sagittarius is in the middle, and then you'll find somewhere in the chart that one sign will be duplicated. Well, in his chart, Aquarius rules the 6th and 7th houses, and Leo rules his 11th house and his first house. He's a Leo rising. So what does this mean when a sign is in the middle and not ruling a cusp? Well, these are called intercepted signs. And intercepted signs are problematic areas of the chart, which means that in this case, having a 10th house Gemini, there would be issues with people publicly, issues with what he says. So not only do we have in his chart the issue of being under the microscope, having a 10th house Gemini, that reputation is always in play, but it becomes very exaggerated by the fact he's got a 10th house intercepted Gemini. So how do we boil this down? Look, people that have this could do all the right things in the world. They could do acts of charity, random acts of kindness, do everything right. But when the 10th house Gemini is intercepted like that, that means that no matter what they do, they are going to be criticized or even crucified for it. So for me, I don't have that. I would not want that, because it just means that no matter what you do, people are going to find fault with it for the most part. And because we have intercepted Sagittarius in the 4th house, this would have to do with how people see. He would have growth, abundance, generosity to family. Well, let me say that in better English. He would hardcore be accused of nepotism with something like that, amongst other things. So it's a tough challenge to have in the chart, to have not only Gemini high in the sky, but intercepted Gemini. And I remember looking at this, years ago, that he had that, and it's a tough placement to have that. Now, because he just had his birthday, President Trump, and again, when you see a solar return chart does not offset the transits. It is a theme for the year, and his birthday being June 14th. He's in, and this is how you do numerology. He's in a 29/11 year, which means he's very charismatic as of his birthday, and that is reflected in the solar return chart. And here we go again. Even though Jupiter and Mercury are good for reputation, his midheaven ruled by Gemini. So again, he could do a lot of wonderful things in the year ahead, and still people are going to find, whatever it is that they want to take a shot at. Now, the thing is, and I found this fascinating when I looked at this, and I hadn't looked at his chart, and there's another chart I'm going to show you in a moment. I just haven't put that kind of energy into it because I haven't talked about his chart since last October. So the Saturn-Neptune alignment, as of his solar return, they're only a degree apart, and it's in his house of contracts, partnerships, alliances. And so he's going to bring truth to individuals, but more so leaders of other countries. And he'll do it in a Neptune way, as kind as he can, but Saturn as firm. And so what you're going to see is sort of a shift of alliances in the next year, but also bringing truth to it. Let me say that in better English. What we will see over the next year in his chart is maybe countries that we thought were our allies are not, and countries we didn't think are our allies that are. So there's going to be some eye-opening things that take place. Because the planet Saturn is at 1 degree of Aries and Jupiter is at almost 1 degree of Cancer, so as he moves forward, he'll move forward, but he'll have like blocks on his legs because there will be opposing forces that try to make things go slower than they do, but he'll still move forward. Very fascinating, but the most important thing to pay attention to in his chart is the Saturn-Neptune a conjunction in the area of partnership and agreements. It'll be some firm, compassionate, but at the same time some boundaries, in play of what he'll tolerate in his negotiations. Let's see here. Oh, yes. I had a viewer get in touch with me recently and ask me about Elon Musk's chart. And I must tell you, I have never looked at his chart. I've never really been interested to look in his chart. This is his natal chart, all right? And the reason I ran the natal chart without anything else is because he's got most of his planets in this receptacle, and then one planet perpendicular, okay? And so this is called a bucket chart. You have the receptacle and the handle, all right? And in this case, the planet Mars is the handle, which is the dominant planet in a bucket chart. And because Mars is in Aquarius in the house of investments and other people's money. Look, it's in Aquarius, and that's all electronic stuff. And Mars is all about setting things into action, being aggressive. Isn't that wild? I never realized that until I looked at his chart. By sun sign and rising sign, the guy's a double Cancer, which means that in some way, shape, or form, he really cares. I never would have guessed that. He has a Virgo moon in the house of money, which means that for the most part, when it comes to money, he actually has a kind of a conservative approach. Virgo moon is the thinking moon, head in your heart, heart in your head. So is it a warm and fuzzy placement? No, no, it's not. Now, when we look at his transits and progressions, and his birthday is June 28th, so he just had a birthday. When we look at the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's coming up in his chart, it's in his 9th house, which means he's going to have to come to terms with what he believes. He may have to look at things differently coming up. There may be things that the 9th house is not research and development or anything like that. It's spirituality, it's wisdom, long distance things, foreign cultures. He may be looking at dealing with different countries and what he's able to do or produce himself. And again, that's just a shot, taking a shot in the dark with this. But he definitely will be looking at a shift of belief systems. Let's put it that way. Then I ran his solar return chart, which this was a bit eye-opening for me. The sun is in the 11th house, which is groups, organizations of people, with Jupiter right on top of it, which means he's into helping people, growing people, helping people to get better. His house of investments has the Neptune-Saturn conjunction in there. So there's something that he will be doing that is unique and different when it comes to what he develops. Remember, with Saturn and Neptune aligning, as one door closes, another one opens. Now, here's something that's fascinating for you astrology aficionados, okay? The planet Pluto is on the opposite of the ascendant. It's on the descendant, okay? And where, for instance, my chart in transit, I have Pluto on the ascendant. And when people have Pluto on the ascendant, they're not real tolerant of stuff. They get to a point where they get done with something. They don't want to get into a lot of, conflict. It's like, that's it, I'm done. But when Pluto is on the descendant, okay, because the rising side is the stronger side, Pluto is more of the we side. If he were my client, and he's not, I would tell him to be very careful about who he picks fights with, and to choose his battles carefully, because he would come out on the short end with Pluto on that side of the chart. So, and because Pluto is right on the cusp of the seventh house, which is contracts, partnerships, things of that nature, he would be wise to be more compliant in a time like this. And again, this is his solar return chart, the theme, for the year ahead. In his 10th house, which is career and reputation, he has Venus right on Uranus. It's a little bit of a wide conjunction, but it's there. So there's a big shift in terms of his reputation. And quite frankly, with Venus in there, he's actually looking good. So what this would mean with Uranus, which is sudden change, where there were people who thought less or ill of him prior to his birthday, that people start to see him in a different light. Because 10th house is your reputation. And it's in Taurus, and Taurus rules the second house of money, possessions, intrinsic values. So people are going to see him as having something to offer. He's got the moon on top of Mercury in Leo in the 12th house, which is his psyche. So this is cause for him to pause and reflect and think about feelings. And this would be personal to him, would have nothing to do with the outside world or business. So there's something that he would be reflecting on, in the time ahead. So, yeah, I had no idea what his chart looked like. And like I said too, I haven't looked at Trump's chart, since last October. For all of us, the chart of the country, is very important, especially the transits. The fact that we have Jupiter aligning with itself, which means that there's a return to abundance, and Jupiter will go into the 8th house, which is investments. And here's the good thing, because Jupiter normally goes through signs every year. And what I'm about to tell you is beneficial to all of us, especially people that invest. So Jupiter heads into investments in the third week of July and stays in that area where it's strong for the economy and what people invest in all the way until the beginning of September of 2026. So we're going into a time of abundance in the United States. So look at your portfolios. Where do you feel that you can invest? Because something good is about to happen with money, and we continue with the transformation of Pluto in the house of day-to-day money. With the Saturn-Neptune alignment in the fourth house of the country, because the fourth house, is the Cancerian house naturally, there's a return to stability. What you will see coming up, and this goes all the way through next February, is the country will go from instability to stability. And we will return to it will look progressively like we're getting back to being the country that we would, could, should be. But it's not going to happen with a snap of a finger. It's going to take some time to do that. And it will take, once these alignments take place in July and then again in February, there will still be time, beyond that, where all of this is forming. You can see here that the progressed moon in the fourth house, that's that inner moon that drives us, has been in the fourth house of the country for 7 months and will be there for another 16 months. So this creates a feeling of more security. The moon is in Aries, which means we're more aggressive about creating security in the country, because the fourth house, is really important in a chart that's a Cancer, even though the Cancerian planets are bunched up here in the 7th and 8th houses. And that's why, with so much of that Cancer in the 7th and 8th house, why the United States, historically, going back into, revolutionary times and then into the, 19th and 20th century, was so big on, come, let us take care of you. Cancer is the mother figure. The Cancer mom wants to feed us and take care of us. So fascinating stuff. Now, with Lisa Allen here coming in next week, see, as we sit here, Uranus today is still in Taurus. It's at 29 degrees, 45 minutes of arc. But like I said, in a few days, Uranus goes into Gemini, which means things really shift. Uranus in Taurus over the past 7-8 years has really been to the benefit of women. I remember talking about Uranus in Taurus going back to, I think it was 2018, I believe, and how that would put more women in politics, more women as leaders in businesses. Now when we go into Uranus and Gemini, things are going to happen a lot quickly. We have to be careful that we don't fly off the handle with Uranus and Gemini. This is going to have a huge effect on communication with Uranus and Gemini, because Uranus rules Aquarius, and Aquarius has everything to do with technology and things like that, especially wireless devices. You're probably going to see some wild inventions in the next 7-8 years where Uranus is in Gemini. And also, Gemini has to do with transportation, commerce. You think we're doing business, e-commerce now, you haven't seen anything yet. And it will have an effect on transportation. You'll probably see a lot more, whether they're buses or trains or cars, vehicles that run on different kind of energy beyond electric or beyond fossil fuel. You're going to see all kinds of inventions and different kinds of communication devices. Whether it's your phone, whether it's your computer, they'll probably come out with, it's not a phone, it's not a computer, it's not an iPad. It's probably something else that's brought forward. So it'll be fascinating to see what Lisa has to say about that. For now, as we go into 4th of July, it's not just, the birthday of the country. It's a holiday that we celebrate. And, make sure that in the days ahead that you are safe. Use common sense. If you're going out to a park or going to a concert or let the professionals handle the fireworks, please. That's really important. Be smart in these times ahead, because we still have, a bit of residue from the events from a couple weeks ago. So, and take time to reflect on, this is a great country. Allow yourself to, really remember, especially those of us with gray hair, the good times that we've had in this country, and those good times can come back. This is the time in celebrating, the finding of this country and gaining our independence. And we've seen in history the pendulum swing one way, then come back the other way. Now the pendulum is coming back again, but we have to look for moderation. And with Uranus and Gemini, that's going to be interesting to see how how moderated things really are, and how that what Uranus and Gemini triggers in people, because that's a very rapid mind. The mind is Jim Morrison of the Doors said it so eloquently. Your brain is squirming like a toad. And that's what people's brains are going to do with Uranus and Gemini. You talk about people, you talk about global ADHD with Uranus and Gemini. So it'll be fascinating to see what comes up, along the way. But like I said, calm. And also, for those of you that, if you have not read or purchased Audrey's book, The Mind Trip Game, please do so, because that's a tool for being calm. She helps get you through that, and she's got a lot of short videos that she is releasing that you can watch. And for me, as we get ready to close, if you're interested in studying the Tarot, Saturday, July 19th is a full day of Tarot, and it's the basic deck. So it's fun. You learn. It's entertaining. And when it comes to entertainment, I want to point out that this past Saturday, Audrey and I went to see someone that's been on our shows. We went to see Mia Mormino, singer and performer, who's so talented, at the Viper Room, and it's fun to watch her perform. And then we went from West Hollywood to Pasadena to the Ice House and saw frequent guest on this show, Craig Shoemaker. And Craig just gets funnier and funnier. And he has more shows coming up. If you have never seen Craig Shoemaker and our friend that we took had never seen him before. He's quite a treat, and he's been doing comedy since the 90s, and he just gets better and better. So, yeah, a lot of fun. Anyway, we are at a point where I'm going to say goodnight. This was a lot of information. If you'd like more information on what I talked about tonight, or you would like a reading to help get clarity in your own chart, just call the center at 818-865-8770, schedule an appointment, because the Uranus and Gemini and the Neptune-Saturn conjunction is going to shake things up and stir things up, but it has an extremely positive outcome on the other end. That's enough. I've talked enough. See, Uranus and Gemini. Thank you for watching. I'm Nick Newmont. I will see you next week back here with Lisa Allen. Have a great, fun, and safe 4th of July. And remember, as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See you next week, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks for watching.